Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. I'm Claire, your go-to for all things finance transformation.
Well, apparently I'm Richard, but I'm in a daze with all the cyber attacks on airports, so I don't know whether I'm coming or going. What I do know is that I do procurement. Apparently, I used to be a guru, but it's actually been quite a long time since we've done a procurement and finance coffee break.
We've been super busy.
I know. I just think you were ignoring me. Anyway, mind you, you did have a good excuse. Right, today, look, delighted to welcome Karl Chapman, and we're going to dive into a topic that probably everyone's touched and probably had a frustration. So it'll be good to kind of hear how it's changed, which is, how are we now using AI in that wonderful world of document and task automation, which I'm rather hoping we're going to hear has come some way since the good old days of OCR back in 1852 or whenever it was that OCR came out.
Only a little bit.
Okay, maybe we should shorten the procurement and finance coffee break this week. Anyway, Karl, CEO of Kim Technologies, and by all accounts, a pioneer in no-code automation and a powered workflow. So I'm looking forward to hearing it.
So, Karl, welcome. Before we get into the details, perhaps you could tell our audience a bit more about Kim Technologies and, your journey so far to date.
Yeah, and thank you very much for inviting me on. So probably just as context, the reason I'm CEO of Kim is because we were one of its first customers. And I was then invited to become a CEO after the sale of our previous business. Mm-hmm. And the reason I said yes is because obviously we could see what it does. And what it does is what it says on the tin. It automates tasks and it automates documents. But in one sense, documents is a byproduct of it, because what Kim does extremely well is it makes it easy to capture new data, augment existing data, confirm data, and then say, now that you've got this data, what do you want to do with it? Oh, I want to trigger that approvals process. Oh, I want to actually push this data to another system. Oh, I want to generate that document or documents. And even though Kim has got phenomenal functionality in it, one of the things we'll touch on is its real secret sauce is it's 100% invisible to end users. They don't have to learn another tool. And I don't know about you, I'm fed up with learning other tools, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I think, one of the key things is a lot of organizations have shelfware, and, great technology is not always adopted. So driving adoption and making it easy gets quite interesting. So that's the quick background on Kim.
Right. Do you know what? I love that because, I train a lot in the procurement space. And my language when I'm talking about someone adopting a new piece of technology in the procurement world is no one had to train anyone to buy stuff using Amazon. So if what you're bringing out requires more training than Amazon, you're doing something wrong. So on that note, I mean, I sort of teasingly mentioned OCR and was hoping you were going to say, oh, that's so old hat. I mean, just to, I suppose, set the big picture very quickly. Where are we today? But more importantly, where do you see, document and task automation, and in particular the involvement of AI in those things over the sort of the next 3 years, which, if we're being honest, in the world of AI is like a millennia at the rate of change that things are going. So perhaps set the scene, Karl. Where are we? Where are we heading?
Well, I think you've got two different questions there, and I'm going to start off on AI first and then come to task and document automation. And I think what we do need to do is take a step back and actually say, okay, hold on a second. The future is not about magic wands. It's all about foundations. And I think here's the irony. Everything, but absolutely nothing has changed, because all roads lead to exactly the same place: data and context. Yeah. If you don't have data and context, which are the foundations of AI, you don't get anywhere. And it was fascinating. I suspect that the AI market is hitting a bit of a credibility gap at the moment, because I was watching and this individual, I can't remember his name, apologies, but he articulated it really well, because he said the AI market is approaching its own square peg round hole moment. And I think what was fascinating about that is when you think about it, here's the reality. You can't just carry on throwing more data and more compute power at it if the fundamental problem is square peg and round hole. And here's the problem. The problem, if you really take it down to its basics, is that the industry is treating LLMs as this massive breakthrough. And do you know what? we all use it for creativity and things like first drafts of documents in terms of PR and press releases, etc.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fantastic. But if you break it down, what are LLMs? They're statistical guesses. They're probabilistic. So you've got this real challenge, which is they're inherently error prone. Now, if you're an enterprise, you cannot build agents on top of an error prone fundamental foundation, because what do we all need? We need certainty. We need deterministic outcomes. So I think at the moment, if you take the AI picture, I think too much money is being invested in, and I think there's going to be a bit of a backlash on this, into forcing probabilistic models onto workflows which enterprise require, which require certainty. So, if you think about it then in the context of AI and task automation, let me give you an example which I found fascinating. We were with a prospect not too long ago, massive adopter of AI and Copilot and everything else. And we're having a conversation with them, and they were saying, what are you going to do? Oh, well, what we're going to do, we're going to upload all of our distribution agreements over the last 5 years, signed ones, and then we're going to use it to allow our teams to be able to prompt and create new distribution agreements. And I said, okay, so I hope you realize that's not going to work. Well, what do you mean it's not going to work? I said, so I think you're making an assumption that because you're uploading your signed contracts, which are your version of the truth, because they're the signed contracts, that actually by uploading them, you're going to enable your teams to self-serve new distribution agreements for Germany, France, whatever it happens to be. Think about this. I can tell you now that what's going to happen is if 6 of us today prompt it with exactly the same prompt, I would like a Germany distribution agreement, we're going to get 6 different distribution agreements.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So, if you're sitting there as an organization, you don't want to do that. What you want is your distribution agreement to come up and then someone to be able to provide the variable data that allows you to generate it. So go back to this is what made me laugh when you said about OCR, because OCR is still a very important part of a tech stack because of the way in which we need to deal with various things. But I think the intriguing thing today is, do you know what? Everything and nothing has changed. It's all about the data and context, and the variance is key. And you cannot carry on throwing compute power and data at a problem where the problem is still the problem. It's a square peg in a round hole.
Do you know what? I love that. And just to obviously interrupt before Claire was about to ask a question. I was at a conference last week, and we had a great discussion. And I said, actually, the way AI systems are going, and people are assuming that they can execute repeatably and whatever, is that actually, if you're using what are rapidly becoming agentic AI, i.e. the ability to do stuff, with a little bit of innovation, at the moment, it's the equivalent of taking a very over-enthusiastic and inexperienced intern after a night out on the town and allowing them to make business decisions while no one else is in the office. That's where it is right now.
Which is why I think we're getting to a credibility gap moment.
Right. Okay.
And I think, this is why, in one sense, if you pull things back, data and context are key. Deterministic outcomes are absolutely critical. And that's why you're seeing a lot of the investments that have been made not producing results and projects being canned. And then going back to basics. The back to basics is data and context, accuracy, generating those documents, making sure that approval process works, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it.
Okay, so thanks, Karl. On to the next question then. So given Kim's focus on no code and invisible automation, which I think is a great concept, right? Because as you say, people don't have to learn a new tool. Within existing systems, how is AI enhancing the seamlessness of this integration? And what is your vision for end user experience as AI matures? Is it more than that? Is it AI embedded in ERP systems that is again invisible? What's your thought on that?
It's Claire. It's a really interesting question because let's get right down to basics again. The best user experience is no experience at all.
Right.
It just happens. And interestingly, if you step back again, well, you don't need to have AI to do that. You can do that today in terms of the ways in which you can set up systems. I mean, part of the challenge, go back to Richard, the point you made at the front end, part of the interesting issue with a lot of the big ERP systems is they've got value gaps in them because no software platform has the ability to cover everything.
Right.
So interestingly, if I'm sitting there as an organization and I've invested heavily in this tech and I'm not going to take it out, it's too embedded, I can't take it out. How do you leverage value from it? Well, you have to plug the value gaps. Now, if you're going to plug the value gaps with individual tasks, it may be in a finance system, it may be a customer dispute process, which is not covered well by that particular ERP. Let's take that as the example. Actually, if you're going to plug that gap, you don't want to introduce another piece of kit into the process, because as a user, I'm not interested. You need to enable it from within that platform. So as far as they're concerned, oh, haven't they just introduced this wonderful new piece of functionality? They don't know it's Kim. It's actually Kim. You've clicked a link, up pops the form. In fact, you may not even click the link. It may have been initiated by an API trigger. It doesn't matter. So I think what's interesting, when we get to user experience, we're all fed up with learning new tools. So part of the challenge I think we've got here is how do you make things invisible to the end user, realizing that they are using tech every day, whatever it happens to be, and that tech stack is introducing technology, including AI. So, take all the big tech stacks, ServiceNow, Salesforce, etc. They're all on that journey. And I think if I give you an example about where we think it's going to get to, and by the way, what we do today, and I'm sure other people do something similar, but this is the beauty of it. It's not about AI. You can do it today. Imagine if you are a user in Salesforce. It could be ServiceNow, it could be Workday, but take Salesforce as the proxy. If I'm sitting there and I want to generate a document, ideally, if I know that if the IT team know that the data is already in Salesforce and it's accurate, on an API trigger, all that should happen is it automatically comes out to Kim with the data. We generate the document behind the scenes and we send it back. And it's created automatically. So the user doesn't do anything. And they just get there's the document. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If actually it's a situation where we know we don't have all the data, therefore I need the user to augment it, well, actually, at that point of the workflow, up pops a web application. But as far as you're concerned, it's still within the Salesforce environment.
Yeah, right.
It's populated with data out of Salesforce. You add in additional data, press submit, and now the same happens. You get the actual document back. Think about in an approval process. Excuse me. In an approval process, I mean, one of the things that we are stunned by is the amount of demand for managing approvals within organizations, because they've all got massive tech stacks, but it falls between stalls if you've got horizontal across functions, and even within functions, it's all being done by spreadsheets and email and Excel. Imagine a situation where I'm in Salesforce again or another system. I need to initiate that process, and the process could be I need a pricing exception request, because I want to price this product to this customer beneath the levels at which I'm authorized to do so. And I know I've got 4 approvers. I've got my line manager, I've got the country MD, I've got central finance, and I may have the group FD, whatever it happens to be. Clearly, all you want to be able to do if you're sitting in Salesforce is press a button. Thank you. And it triggers the process automatically, goes to you can do that today. Now, some of that will have AI under it. It doesn't need to, because you've got task automation that enables it. So I think the bottom line is, forget whether it's AI, forget whether it's traditional task automation or CLMs. Bottom line is, how do we as an industry make it invisible for users? Because, as you say, people don't want to be trained. They don't need to be trained. No. They shouldn't need to.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I'm here in Vienna. I'm about to chair ProcureCon for 3 days, and I know that one of the big areas for discussion is, of course, AI and how it's going to pull together procurement tech stacks. Now, we're not going to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm going to flag it. I know, one of the biggest challenges with orchestrating data, workflows between different systems is that actually, when I was going through university, we had wonderful standards for data exchange, good old dynamic data, DDE. Long gone. I mean, there are now no standards, and one of the biggest challenges is that, dare I say, legacy providers protecting value are reluctant to allow that connectivity, and at the same time, the lack of standards is also meaning that you're getting errors when you're trying to connect things that will let you connect. Now, park that thought, because that's a big enough challenge. But as you said in your background, data that you're handling is often personal data. You're automating workflows between different systems for large organizations. I mean, how does Kim meet that challenge of, data privacy and trust in the handling of data, where you're automating workflows internationally and multi-system? I mean, how on earth do you do that?
Now that is a conversation that could take us the entire podcast and beyond.
How about that?
Suffice it to say, Richard, that we've been going for over 10 years. We operate globally with Fortune 500 companies. We've got every scar on our back for making sure that both from a technical perspective and from an operating perspective, we're satisfying all those requirements, right down from the CTO at one end through to all of the CIOs and everything else in between. It's a complicated exercise, but actually relatively straightforward to do once you've actually got the stack in place. Now, the key thing for us is what we're doing is, if you think about it, goes back to what I was saying at the front end. We're either capturing new data, augmenting existing data, or confirming data that people have already got.
Right.
So the interactions there make it very easy for us to manage the infrastructure you've just described. I mean, we wrote this may make you laugh. We wrote a tongue-in-cheek paper from a fictional CTO to his or her board. And we started off with "Go hug your CTO," because they're in an impossible position, because they're being asked by all this AI, it's going to change our entire company. We've got to be competitive, take all these costs out, et cetera, et cetera. And the CTO sitting there going, we don't capture the appropriate data now. You don't follow the processes we've got in place. The workflows have got all this shadow. Right, you really want me to get, can we go back to the data, please? We've got to get the data models right. So it's quite fascinating in terms of, it goes back to the front end. Everything and nothing has changed.
How about that?
I think it goes back to when we've talked previously, Richard, about AI and the impact. If you don't have good business processes and good data models, it doesn't matter what
you automate. No, absolutely.
You'll still get rubbish out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question then.
Yeah, we did that quite short. That was good. An all day condensed into like 90 seconds. How about that?
So how do you believe advances in AI-driven automation will shape workforce skills and roles, especially for users who are not technical? And what is Kim's strategy to help organizations navigate this transition? Because just say, like, just take it now. For example, one of the things I see in consulting, I mean, we've talked about some of the difficulties of implementing AI at an enterprise level. And I think speaking to other people, other organizations are seeing that sort of crunch on realizing ROI on AI because those fundamentals are not there.
Absolutely.
Right? But if you think about then what it means, okay, well, what can you do, and what does it mean for your workforce? For example, in consulting, there's a lot of and you've probably seen in the news where some of the big four have started delayering or not hiring much as they used to. But there's a lot at a more junior level that you can now simply do with AI, like research, creativity, drafting information. I'm not saying that you can take all the research that AI tools give you as a given. You obviously have to read it and verify and check it.
Yeah.
But in terms of pulling it together, which previously those entry-level roles would be doing for you, they'd be sort of pulling lots of data together for you to view, and that now you can work on business cases and pitches and proposals with a lot less junior staff to help you. So I'm kind of interested from your point of view, how do you see these advances in AI and automation shaping workforce skills and roles? Because that kind of you're almost expecting people like grads to graduate from university and then jump quite high up without that sort of foundational level work anymore. So how do you see the future?
You've got me onto one of my favorite and at times frustrating subjects. And I'm going to start first of all on a phrase which I find challenging whenever I hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a great example of where the technology industry has taken language and shaped perceptions as a result, which are driving behaviors which mean people are getting involved in projects which have got no ROI and never will. Okay, and it's this lovely phrase, human in the loop. Right, human in the loop is nonsense. It should be technology in the loop. We've got it the wrong way round. So if you think about the way in which skill sets and technology are evolving and developing, right, today, with tools like Kim, you can take people who've got no IT development or coding expertise whatsoever, and you can, within a few hours, automate that approvals process, that intake process for shared services, generating that NDA or that sales contract. Now, when you think about the impact of that, what's that done? That's removed the need for project managers, business analysts, IT developers, because effectively what you're doing is you're democratizing the actual automation process. But it is technology in the loop, not human in the loop, because actually the people should be, full stop, period, in control. It goes back to your point, Claire, about you're still going to check the output from someone who's done that. You may have fewer people doing it because they can use AI, but you're not going to submit that proposal to a customer without actually going through it first, because it will never get the subtleties and nuances and understand the actual intricacies of that relationship. Equally, if you're going to automate a process, well, take the subject matter. In fact, you don't even need to take the subject. All the subject matter expert needs to do is agree, that's the output I want. At the end of this day, I want this output. Now, can I take this person over here who's got no experience whatsoever? Could you just please automate it? So I think what's interesting is we're approaching it. I'm not entirely convinced about the large-scale predictions being made on job losses through AI. There are clearly going to be in very clear areas. You can identify them now in marketing. You can see it in terms of the junior levels you've described. But actually, if I think about how technology can be used going forward, I think it's going to spur a remarkable degree of creativity and innovation with tools which actually do not require. I don't need a business analyst or a project manager or an IT developer to actually automate that process anymore. Actually, I don't need that person to create an application. Or I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll create an approvals process, a generic off-the-shelf approvals process, which will make available to any company. Suddenly, people will have the ability to create those tools with people like Kim and various other things. So I think we're in a very interesting scenario in terms of where the skill sets are going. And, it may widen the gap in some areas, but I think it's leveling up non-technical people.
Yeah, very cool. Do Karl, you cannot be a whistle-stop conversation with someone who's passionate about what they do. So look, just as a final thing, I mean, if you were talking to one of our viewers who is looking to embrace AI in document automation, what one piece of advice would you give them before they embark on a journey?
Don't decide on AI first. Start from the other end. What problem am I trying to solve? And if the problem is I'm trying to solve generating that document or automating that task, have a guess what? You don't need to go down a fully fledged AI route and spend a lot of trying to work it out on an LLM, which is probabilistic, and you're probably going to end up with error written in it. There are automation tools. And here's the beauty of it. If you think about it in the context of something like Kim's a no-lose decision for an organization because tactically it solves real-world problems today. That task, that document, that approvals process, strategically, it's a key part of any AI tech stack because it creates data and context. What I'd say to somebody is, don't start with the answer, AI. Start with, well, what problem am I actually trying to solve? Now you'll get an ROI. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll struggle.
And that goes back to one of my I suppose sort of pet peeves, doing a tech implementation without documenting what the requirements are, because if you've documented what the requirements are, then you automatically go through, well, what are the options that will solve these problems, and what are the price points, and how easy is it to implement. I think so many So many organisations go with the technology first without actually properly understanding what the business requirements are. Well, thanks so much, Karl, and thanks to our audience for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, see you again on the Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. Bye-bye.
Fabulous, Karl. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Pleasure.